Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Philadelphia fans, we're cut from a different cloth. Born into a brotherhood and bonded to our team for life. We believe anything is possible because we've witnessed the impossible. While we may be from different neighborhoods, come Sunday, we are one, and we will be heard. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Back at it again. It's the Football Playbook with your boy RIC in the place to be. Ric Serritella here with you on this November 10th. What a beautiful day. A lot of moving and shaking going on in the football universe. More importantly, buckle up. It's our 50th episode on the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel. Wow. 5-0. Can't get too excited. I got to give a shout out to my Bird Gang. The Birds 365 show here on JAKIB Sports just had their 400th show. So we got quite a bit to go. But in all seriousness, big kudos to Mac and Mac, Jody Mac, John McMullen for kind of changing the game and changing the way you guys consume your Philadelphia Eagles football talk. We do a lot of that as well here each and every day, 10 to 12, counting you down a sports take. And we got another jam-packed show for you today. 168 days until the NFL draft. That's what we do over at the NFLDraftBible.com. Partnered up with Sports Illustrated, over 500 scouting reports for 2023 and beyond. So I figured it'd be a good day to talk a little NFL draft later on in the show. We'll have our guy, Dane Vandernat, will check in at 10:30. NFLPA, Collegiate Bowl invites out. Senior Bowl invites being accepted. East-West Shrine Bowl invitations out there. And so at 11, we'll keep it rolling. Chad Ryder, my guy, NFL.com, NFL draft content over there. Gil Brandt's right-hand man is going to bless us at the 11 o'clock hour. And a lot of controversy surrounding these invitations. If I have time later on in the show, I'll address it. And we'll be out in front of a story that is going to blow up in a big way. But that's what we do here at the Football Playbook, man. We bring you inside the NFL, inside the scouting community. Man, what else we got going on? A lot of stuff I'm going to get into here today. Buckle up, hit the like button, because this is the show where we just drop gems on them. I hit you with knowledge. I'm not here to try and make you laugh and be a comedian, although sometimes, hopefully, we do educate, entertain, and inject some lightheartedness into the show. Love interacting all of our chat room people. I see a lot of people waking up with us this morning. Thank you so much. Richard Rosania is early today, Paisan. Buckle up. Danny D, good morning to you. Richard Rosania, Adams Exploits, always a pleasure. Sean S, how you doing? William Stark in the place to be. Man, Brawlster B, Ayo, good morning. All brought to you by Ocean Casino Resorts, of course, in Atlantic City. And, man, there's so much. I've got a very enlightening conversation. Quarterback coach Brian Johnson joined the Adam Schefter podcast. Did you see that? Got a lot of great notes out of it. Also, there's a new podcast with Josh and Josh. Did you guys see this one? Josh Norris and Josh McCown have partnered up to unveil a new podcast or a YouTube I think this was the first one anyway. They did Jalen Hurts. Wow. You know, you talk about a guy off the streets to be an NFL coach. Jeff Saturday is kind of funny. Josh McCown, he's ready. Man, that's a guy, woo, who is head coaching material, and a lot of good information that I'm going to shed there. Ric Serritella, he went one-on-one with David Spadaro over at theeagles.com. And, you know, wherever you guys want to start off, let me know. I will say this. Big congrats in order for our guy, huh? John D. Filippo. Did you guys see it? Hey, you know, I spoke to Coach a couple weeks back, and he had told me that he had interviewed for the job. I didn't want to spill the beans here on the show until it was official. This morning, I just saw Coach John D. Filippo was named head coach of the New Orleans Breakers of the USFL, which, oh, by the way, has a Philadelphia team. I think the Stars won it all last year. I think the Philadelphia Stars are the defending champions. So very exciting for Coach Flip. Pretty young guy, 44 years old, gets his first head coaching job in professional ball. I think he's going to do very well there. I think Coach Flip is going to create a little buzz for himself. And we'll have him on. By the way, we missed him last week. We'll have Coach Flip tomorrow at the 11 a.m. hour. We also flipped, see what I did there? We also flipped Kayla over to Friday since we missed her yesterday. So Kayla Santiago will join us on Friday. And we'll start off tomorrow morning with Cafe Kratz. Of course, Eagles Today, Eagles Today at Sports Illustrated. It's hard to keep up with all our guests here on the Football Playbook. You just never know who's going to drop by. Alexander Freeman is all up in here. What do you call a dig who is great retrieving sticks? A branch manager. Adams Exploits. Hey, thank you, sir, for lightening it up. The atmosphere here today. Hey, we like to hit you with a lot of facts and figures. We don't like to speculate. We just sit here and regulate and then let the rest of the media catch up. So here's what I want to tell you. Watching all these film breakdowns between Brian Baldinger, who joined the show yesterday, make sure you check out the archive. Our producer, Tone DeShields, did a great job archiving that on the YouTube channel. But watching Baldy, watching Warner, watching Josh McCown, here's the conclusion that I've come to draw on. Aside from the fact that, yes, on November 10th, the Philadelphia Eagles are the best team in football. And yes, on November 10th, Jalen Hurts is your NFL MVP. But I'm here to tell you, the Philadelphia Eagles offense is a chameleon. That's the conclusion I've drawn. The Philadelphia Eagles offense is a chameleon. And we sit here and we listen to Ric Serritella and Shane Steichen talk about, hey, each week is a different game plan. Week to week, it could change. We've seen it. Eight weeks in, I am convinced that the Eagles have the top offense in the NFL because of the different ways they can slice and dice. I'm down here at the Jersey Shore, Midshore Meats. Bro, hire Jalen Hurts. They need a butcher. Hurts is for hire. He's dicing guys. He is the leader of the orchestra. And guess what? 1 week, they can kill you with the deep ball. The next week, they can ground and pound and beat you with the running attack. Another week, they can dink and dunk with screen passes. They can beat you on the outside. They can beat you in the flat. They can beat you over the middle. They beat you in the screen game. This is the most dominant offense in the NFL, and I'm here again to put the other media and NFL on notice because they're not getting the respect they deserve at 8-0. Everybody's talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, Josh Allen, Bro, let me tell you something. Buffalo and Kansas City does not even pale in comparison with the run game. They can't even hold a jockstrap to the Philadelphia Eagles in the running attack. Brian Baldinger said Jalen Hurts throws a better deep ball than Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. How about that? Yeah, they got the arm strength. Yeah, they got the RPM. Yeah, they got the miles per hour. Looks good. Jalen Hurts is sexier. That's what we do. We get out in front. We let the rest of the media catch up. Buckle up. It's a double chin strap affair here with your boy, Ric Serritella. Man, I love you guys in the chat room, all the listeners. Shout out. Hit the like button while you're here. So let's start off with, to me, man, these were both riveting segments. Brian Johnson, I guess we'll start there since it was the shorter segment of the two. Josh Norris, by the way, one of the great all-time memes out there, if you're into the Twitterverse kind of deal. I've been up since 4 a.m, guys. I need a little coffee here. Paul Mancini, thanks for joining us, man. You're a little bit late to the party, but that's all good because you're a regular every day. We always got a seat reserved in the VIP section for you. Yes, Jonathan Abrams did get picked up and claimed by the Green Bay Packers, so he's off the table. Caitlin, appreciate the love and support. Yes, get them likes up. Dylan Canepa, good morning. Beautiful people. Soar with me. I love the emojis. Hey, let me know where you're checking in from. We got people from across the globe here. This is the international show, worldwide. My guy, Andre Spence, Philadelphia's finest. Are you fucking crazy? Are you kidding me? Yeah, that's right. Dre Day, welcome to the show, brother. Thank you for chiming in, man. So good to see you. You just made my day. Let me put the coffee down now because it just got serious with Spence. Dre Day checking in. Man, so I got to tuning into this podcast with Adam Schefter, a good friend of the show, by the way, Long Island's finest. I'm sure we'll pop him up here at some point on the Football Playbook. You never know who's going to drop by. Nork, Brick City, Danny D in the building. Claire Moss, Belleville, right here. Oh, man, you guys. Woo! All right, so Brian Johnson joined the Adam Schefter podcast. Right out of the gate, it caught my attention because, Shefty's pretty well connected. Now, disclaimer purposes, right? Like, these podcasts, you got to be a little bit leery of how they got set up. What's the purpose of this? Sometimes Adam Schefter, good friend of the show, he can get used by the agents out there. And, Schefter, I don't want to say gets used, but, it's like, hey, do me a favor. I'll do you a favor. You give me a scoop. I'll get your guy on my show. So I don't want to speculate and say that the agent orchestrated this, but it was a little fishy at the start because Adam Schefter made this bold declaration and proclamation that, hey, our next guest is a future NFL head coach, and it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when. And I said, wow, what an introduction. Because we sit here and we talk about Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon and all the interviews. Shane Steichen, one of the favorites for the Carolina job. Jonathan Gannon, 3 head coaching interviews in the offseason. How about Brian Johnson as a head coaching candidate? I don't know if we talk about that enough. And, he is the guy that's going to be looking shiny like a diamond because it's under his watch that Jalen Hurts has grown and developed. It's under his coaching that Jalen Hurts has made mice out of men. It's under his watch that Jalen Hurts really has evolved into a franchise quarterback. And if you haven't heard the podcast, Brian Johnson comes on for about 10, 15 minutes, but it is enlightening, riveting. If you're an Eagles fan, if you're a Jalen Hurts supporter, if you're anxious for the second half of the season, buckle up. Woo, man, I think the Eagles are going to be 11-0 come December. They got a shot to run the table. El Paso, Texas in the house. Home, not too far away from Jalen. So Brian Johnson comes on the show, and he talks about the camaraderie of this football team, because in case you didn't know, he previously was the OC at Florida for the Gators, and he's one of these Dan Mullen kind of proteges. I don't want to say a protege, but Kyle Whittingham actually gave him his start in coaching, because he was the quarterback at Utah not too long ago. Back in 2009, he was undrafted. And this is a young guy. He's 35 years old. But you're seeing in the NFL these younger head coaching assistant candidates. Now, he was asked very direct about the development of Jalen Hurts. And he said, listen, he's accelerated his vision, getting through progressions, understanding defenses, having his eyes in sync. These are all attributes he accredited Jalen Hurts' improvement this year. And he did say the reps from last year were just invaluable, because I'm watching guys at the collegiate level this year. Hendon Hooker's been talked about a lot. He's older than Jalen Hurts. Kenny Pickett's a guy who's a rookie. He's older than Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is in the third year as a starter. And so he's saying the big difference is Jalen's very decisive with the football. And he started to see the maturity, the maturation of Jalen Hurts after the Giants game last year, he said. After the Giants game last year is when Brian Johnson noticed a difference. And these are all things to pay attention to, because he let us in on some secret sauce. They got into why are the Eagles enjoying so much success? Why are they undefeated? He said the connectivity, the communication. It starts with Sirianni. He had so much kudos and credit to give to Nick Sirianni with his energy, the attention to detail. His organization is second to none. And so these are all key components to why Jalen is soaring. And you've got to understand where Brian Johnson comes from to appreciate the impact, the significant impact he's had on Jalen Hurts. Here's a guy who backed up Alex Smith back in the day at Utah. In fact, when he arrived to Utah, Dan Mullen was the quarterback coach, I believe. And Brian Johnson and Alex Smith were the only two quarterbacks on scholarship there. So he said, despite going to Utah, knowing he was going to be a backup, he said, I felt good about it. And Dan Mullen, his freshman year, said, yo, just follow Alex. In fact, we're going to make you live with him. So he lived with Alex Smith as a true freshman. And that's where he said he learned how to prepare. That's where he said he learned his mental toughness from Alex Smith. And we saw that coming back from a horrific injury. That's where he kind of grew these roots to be an aspiring coach. I found it to be an enlightening interview. I learned a lot because I didn't know a lot about Brian Johnson other than the accolades and playing in the UFL. Being an OC at Florida. He said something interesting about how he conducts himself and what makes him a good coach. Being authentic and genuine. And again, he went back to Sirianni. He said Sirianni's super authentic, the most authentic and genuine coach that he's ever worked with. And I think we see that in the press conferences. Like, yo, he's Joey Bag of Donuts, your regular guy down the street. And I think that who cares that the fans embrace it? We all appreciate it, but the players appreciate it. I think that's what's most important. His message resonates with the players because they relate to him. This Brian Johnson man had a lot of good insight, a lot of good attention to details. And he got into Jalen's offseason. He said the strides and improvement he made, not just in the offseason, they trickled into the training camp, but he said after the season, they sat down, they made a hit list. Because Jalen came to him. He said, Coach, how do I get better? What do I need to work on? What do I need to do to take my game to the next level? So they made a hit list after the season. And then they went to work. And he said Jalen's the most relentless, hardworking quarterback he's ever coached. So all these little layers underneath the surface that are stacking up brick by brick. Paul Mancini says, I believe Sirianni allows the coaches to empower the assistants and have them kind of be authoritative. So, yes, there is a lot to be said for that. I think Sirianni learned after the 2-5 or 3-6 start a year ago, he needs to delegate. And that's what he's done. And, man, they got a good one in Brian Johnson. Should they lose Steve Steichen? Man, next man up. A lot of people talk about Frank Reich being a free agent. Nah, Brian Johnson's in-house. He's the next man up. But there could be a scenario where you lose Steichen and Brian Johnson. He's that good, folks. He's that good. So I wanted to shine the spotlight on Brian Johnson, who I really haven't talked about much here, 50 episodes into the football playbook. So, hey, it's his time to shine. He's been on that grind. I know the deal. Show the man some love. Hey, show your boy some love. Smash that like button, man. I need help in the algorithm, man. I'm just a small fish in a big pond over here at JAKIB Sports. Help me get my weight up like Devonta Smith, would you? So, listen, we're 168 days away from the 2023 NFL Draft. Man, I see a lot of All-Star Game invitations floating around on the social media. The 11th annual NFLPA Collegiate Bowl, January 29th. I'm so pumped up about it. Invitations went out this week. And to talk NFL draft right here in just a few minutes is our good friend, Dane Vandernat, executive director of the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl, who was, oh, by the way, out at Missouri last week getting a firsthand look at a potential first-round quarterback by the name of Will Levis. When we come back, I'm going to tell you what I think of the guy who eats oranges with the peel on it. The guy who puts mayonnaise in his coffee. I'm not talking about Dane Vandernat. Nope. It's Will Levis. We're going to get into that. Scouting trails, all-star invitations, NFL draft buzz. Oh, baby, we got the Eagles and the Commanders on deck on Monday Night Football. We'll start off with that. But, hey, kick back, relax, throw your feet up, buckle up, strap up. We still got 90 minutes of power on the football playbook. We're flexing, we're digressing, and we're sexing it up here on the football playbook. Don't go anywhere. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back right after this.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Since 1977 at Rafferty Subaru, we have always been about our customers and the community. Early on, a safe and durable option, we've evolved to become the best overall brand according to Kelley Blue Book. Over the last 14 years, we've donated thousands of dollars through the Subaru Share the Love event and found homes for hundreds of pets. The Rafferty family is proud of our 45 years in business. This month, celebrate our anniversary with special financing on select models. Visit us and see why.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Welcome to Pondley Hockey. We've helped over 100,000 injured and disabled workers obtain benefits, as well as some of the biggest settlements in the state. If you've been injured at work, give Pondley Hockey a call.
Back at it again. It's the Football Playbook with your boy RIC and the place to be here at the Jersey Shore, breaking it down for another edition, our 50th episode here on the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel. Are you buckled up? Are you strapped in? Are you clicking subscribe so you get all of our show notifications? Huh? Are you hitting the like button for your boy? Because I got news for you. Man, we're just getting started here at the Football Playbook, but I will tell you, come January, this will be NFL Draft Central. You won't find a better show that covers the NFL Draft than this place right here. So get yourself comfortable. Make yourself at home. Our next guest is a regular, Dane Vandernat, of course, Director of Pro Personnel for the Las Vegas Raiders, formerly of the Oakland Raiders, current Director for the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl, checking in from the home of the 2023 NFL Draft, which is 168 days away. Good morning, Dane. How are you today?
Good morning, Rick. Doing great, man. Appreciate you having me on again.
Man, listen, it's not a Thursday unless we're getting educated with the tutorial edition with Dane Vandernat, who, oh, by the way, teaches the football GM and scouting course over at smww.com. If you want to get one-on-one with Dane and talk some football with him, you could do that too. But we get up close and personal here. It's like my guy Jay Koch says in the chat room, we're breaking it down like ricotta cheese over here. So hey, we get a little Italian with it sometimes on the Football Playbook. But Dan, I want to talk to you before we get into this Eagles Commanders matchup. It's a big week here for us because we're fresh off of scouting calls with the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. I know invitations went out this week. Of course, you talk about the big three on the All-Star game circuit and the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl and players accepting invitations. So it's an exciting time of year in the draft community. But for all of our listening audience, of course, I did the state of football for quite a while and people were familiar with you there. But we have a whole brand new audience that might be tuning in for the first time or maybe aren't as familiar with the NFLPA Bowl as the Senior Bowl. Talk a little bit about our event, what it's all about, and more specifically the invitation process that has kind of unfolded this week.
Sure. Yeah, no, it is an exciting week, Rick. As you said, our first wave of invitations went out. As I've been telling agents all week, we're hopeful that we're going to fill about half our roster with this initial wave of invitations. And then, we'll continue to get responses, and we'll continue to, send out subsequent invitations. And obviously until we get to our 112-man roster. But for those that may be new to our event or haven't heard of us yet, so we're an all-star game, much like the Senior Bowl. In fact, we're the week directly before the Senior Bowl, and we're going to host 112 of some of the top senior and graduated underclass NFL prospects this year. And what we provide is, in the all-star game setting, is an opportunity for all 32 teams. What did we have last year, Rick? Around 300 scouts and player personnel executives that were out at our event, out there to interview our young men, able to watch them go through the week of practice, see how coachable they are, see how they respond in a new environment with new teammates, new coaches, new playbook, whole 9 yards. And then obviously it culminates with the game that Saturday that'll be aired live on NFL Network. But really what separates us, as you mentioned, Rick, the big three, right, with the Senior Bowl, the East-West Shrine, and our event, the NFLPA Bowl. What differentiates us from the other two is the NFLPA, right? We have the NFLPA is the union for all NFL players. They sponsor and produce our event. They do a phenomenal job of not only putting on a first-class event, staying at an incredible hotel in the Intercontinental in downtown LA, practicing and playing at the legendary Rose Bowl Stadium, but providing player panels and educational resources. We've had lots of Hall of Famers, people like Deion Sanders, Michael Vick coming back to share their story and, relate to these young men as they're looking to transition from being a college player to a professional football player. So, I always tell our guys it's more than a week. It's an investment in your future. So, we're excited for not only to get over this hump and get that initial invite list sent out, but, to also start seeing some of these responses and see what players going where. And, it's really kind of like, a kid shopping at Christmas here, Rick, where, there's all sorts of toys out there and can't wait to get our hands on them and ultimately see them out here in January.
No, it's such an exciting time of the year, and I love it because of the stories like Sam Williams, a second-round pick of your Dallas Cowboys, made a name for himself at the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. And, of course, collegiate.nflpa.com, you can get all of Dane's scouting notes from Tales from the Scouting Trails, I like to call them. We'll get into that in just a second. Of course, we also highlight a lot of the alumni, and you mentioned the historic Rose Bowl. A guy I highlighted this past week, Chris Barnes, UCLA, overlooked, came to Pasadena, showed up. Well, he didn't have to travel far. That's where he played his college home games. But the Packers got a good one. He was an undrafted free agent, earned a starting role his rookie year. We wrote about guys like that. We wrote about guys like Jack Stoll of the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Eagles have quite a few NFLPA Bowl alumni. I know you've mentioned Zach McPherson on the show. Sean Bradley, the junkyard dog, as I like to call him, special teams aficionado. But Jack Stoll, man, I mentioned it. I threw out the stat yesterday. Him and Mercedes Lewis, they've played over 40% of their team's offensive snaps, only 3 catches. It goes to show how valuable they are utilized in the pass blocking game. And the Eagles, believe it or not, they've got a lot of 12 personnel packages this year. Jack Stoll, a big reason for that.
No question. And Jack was, hands down, one of my favorite interviews I've ever done, as part of the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl, and, helping prepare him, for coming from Nebraska on out to the Eagles. What an awesome story. What an awesome young man. But you're absolutely right, Rick. He's the type of dude that teams are looking for, right? The gritty, has NFL size, but he's going to go out there and do that dirty work that a lot of guys don't want to do. You look at some of the great, receiving tight ends that the Eagles have had, right? Clay Harbor comes to mind as one of them. But Clay was more of the move guy. He was more of the athletic pass catcher. Well, you need to offset those types of guys, right? Dallas Goedert, at least, is an NFL, inline wide tight end, frame, body guy that can cover up a defender in the run game. And then obviously we all know he excels in the pass game. Jack Stoll is bigger, he's longer, he's stronger, he's tougher. He's going to go out there, he's going to go stick his face in somewhere, and he's not going to stop until after that whistle's done blowing. So, the NFL has places for guys like Jack Stoll. Really proud of what he's done and accomplished so far in his young career there.
Yeah, one of my favorite Philadelphia Eagles from a personal standpoint, because Sirianni talks about it all the time. He's one of those dirty work players that just doesn't get the props or the kudos. And I'll tell you what, Eagles fans are going to appreciate this guy more and more as the season wears on. He's just an X factor in that blocking attack, which, Philadelphia values. And there are a lot of teams trying to find guys like that. There's just not a lot of an influx coming out each and every year. Dane Vandernat here with us on the Football Playbook. The Eagles do have the Commanders on deck, and another guy that is an NFL PA Bowl alumni that
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Since 1977 at Rafferty Subaru, we have always been about our customers and the community. Early on, a safe and durable option, we've evolved to become the best overall brand according to Kelley Blue Book. Over the last 14 years, we've donated thousands of dollars through the Subaru Share the Love event and found homes for hundreds of pets. The Rafferty family is proud of our 45 years in business. This month, celebrate our anniversary with special financing on select models. Visit us and see why.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Welcome to Pondley Hockey. We've helped over 100,000 injured and disabled workers obtain benefits, as well as some of the biggest settlements in the state. If you've been injured at work, give Pondley Hockey a call.
Back at it again. It's the Football Playbook with your boy RSC and Dan Vandernat here. Appreciate you being patient through the technical difficulties. Big shout out to all of our chat room people. I see Craig T. Smith. Yeah, that's what we do. We're talking talent. We're talking NFL draft. And this guy, Dane Vandernat's one of the best evaluators in the business. We're so blessed to have him here. on the Football Playbook and the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl has been doing Big Willie things since Dane has taken over. 14 players not invited to the NFL Combine, but getting drafted out of the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. About 250 players on opening day rosters or practice squads opening week one of the NFL, and that number just continues to increase as guys get elevated throughout the year. But before my internet here on the great island of the Jersey Shore cut out on us, Dane, I was going to ask you about another NFLPA Bowl alumni guy that you were kind of on pretty early in the process, Derek Forrest from Cincinnati, the safety, and Washington's got a trio of good safeties, but from my understanding, he is emerging as one of the biggest playmakers on this defense, and he's got like 40 tackles halfway through the season as a backup pretty much, but I think it's only a matter of time before he becomes a staple in this Washington secondary. What did you see from him coming out of Cincinnati with the Bearcats?
Yeah, and you know what, Rick, you mentioned obviously the guys that we had that were draft picks who weren't combine invites, but to be honest, one of my favorite stats and one of the things I'm most proud of our staff for are the 14 guys that went undrafted but made a 53-man roster on opening weekend, right? And we've had more of those guys that have subsequently made rosters, but we use that week one as really our barometer, right, and how we're doing. But, really proud of those guys because here's the thing, folks. There are only approximately 250 draft picks, but most NFL teams have way above that number. And if you were to poll all 32, you'd have a pool of 350 to 400 guys that one team or another has draftable, right? And when I was with the Raiders, one of my favorite things we would do is we'd have guys we had rated in the 5th, 6th, 7th round for sure every single year not get drafted because, hey, look, maybe they were just that position was deep that year or, they were overlooked for whatever reason. But those guys became priority free agents that obviously we wanted to go and, get a little signing bonus to and get those guys in the fold quickly once the draft was over. So I know that, everyone wants to talk mock drafts in the first 2 rounds of the draft. And, a lot of, maybe amateur fans, that aren't familiar with it don't understand that, hey, look, those day 3 guys are invaluable to your organization.
Let me follow up on that because our listening audience might not know this. I beat it like a dead horse on my other show, but a third of every NFL roster, 27 to 33% of every NFL roster consists of undrafted free agents. And I don't think the average fan knows that, but it's a real thing. And that's why these all-star games are so valuable as part of the process. I just wanted to get that out there now. Derek Forrest, one of those guys. Give me the lowdown. What did you see?
Yeah, no, but so for Derek Forrest, he's a big-bodied kind of old-school box strong safety, but he plays kind of that hybrid strong safety weak side linebacker role these days, right? Something the NFL is going more and more to as we get more, passing oriented as the rules, lighten up and really, now teams are throwing the ball 60, 65. If you're Tampa Bay, 80% of the time, right? So as the NFL evolves more to a passing league, you're starting to see more DBs on the field. And a guy like Derek Forrest, he can sit there and provide both. He can provide physicality and size in the box to stop the run, and then he still has enough speed and range, to be a competent pass defender, match up with tight ends, cover, and especially, play low zone. So, those hybrid type players, I think we're only going to start seeing more and more, Rick, but a guy that has those intangibles, right? That grit, like we were talking about with Jack Stahl, that is Derek Forrest, as a character makeup, as a play demeanor for the for the Commanders there.
No, it makes so much sense as I listen to you talk. It's starting to click in my head because it looks like Washington almost plays like a 4-2-5. Then I said, oh, by the way, Ron Rivera is the head coach. Oh, yeah, he was on that Buddy Ryan defense back in 85. And a guy like Derek Forrest is someone who's going to see a lot of field action come Monday night. Let me ask you this, Dane. Eagles are soaring high, 8-0. I started off the show by saying their offense is a chameleon. I mean, they can adapt and adjust and change up the offensive style of attack depending on their opponent. And in the past week alone, I've seen Brian Baldinger, Kurt Warner, and Josh McCown do film study breakdowns on Jalen Hurts. I mean, and at this point, I gotta start putting Geno Smith in the conversation too. But Geno's a different story because he's been in the league for a decade. Jalen's only 3 years into the league. This guy's ceiling, there's untapped potential here. I'm starting to see the Eagles offense almost take on, with all the RPOs, almost take on the identity of the Oklahoma Sooners, where Lincoln Riley, whoever was willing to pay attention and listen, he was telling the evaluators, hey, Jalen came in here transferring from Alabama, and he said ran that offense more efficiently than Kyler Murray or Baker Mayfield. And if you go back and look at the stats too, I think they might even be better. But it just goes to show, like, hard work can beat talent. Jalen Hurts, the perfect example of that.
Yeah, no, we used to have a sign in our building since you brought up the hard work beating talent, and it said, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, right? So I think like when you have guys like Jalen Hurts, you're absolutely right, Rick. We talked about this before, right? I was at that Oklahoma-Houston game to watch, Jalen Hurts take on Derek King there back in that 2019 season, and it was phenomenal to watch him. I thought for certain I was watching the third consecutive Heisman Trophy winner coming out of Oklahoma, right? Now, obviously, things cooled a little bit as that second half of that season went on, but I think you're right. You see the talent of Jalen Hurts, and I haven't always been, the biggest supporter necessarily, but I think the thing that you're seeing nowadays is you see these quarterbacks really just developing beyond that normal range that they would have. For instance, Josh Allen, right? Josh Allen was an inaccurate quarterback coming out of Wyoming. Typically, guys don't become more accurate when they get to the NFL because the NFL is not throwing as many bubble screens. They're not throwing as many short underneath passes. They're actually asking these quarterbacks to throw the football down the field, right? Defenders are better. They're bigger. They're faster. They're more explosive. They're able to contest more passes. So typically, you see guys, their completion percentage go down from college to the pros. But you see Josh Allen improve his accuracy. You see Jalen Hurts becoming a threat, not only with his legs, but more and more with his arm as well. And you have to have that balance in order to win a championship in the NFL, right? You have to be able to do both. It's great if you can run the ball. We see those teams make the playoffs every single year, but at some point, just like the Kansas City Chiefs versus those Bills last year in the playoffs, right? You got to be able to throw the ball when the game's on the line. So it's great to see Jalen Hurts continue to ascend. And, I agree with you, Rick. He's got a high ceiling and with some more room to grow here.
Yeah, I think he's made believers out of all of us. And I was watching Josh McCown do a breakdown this morning, and the different look, like they're running the same play, but with the different formation. So they'll run the same play in the pistol as they will, inside zone scheme. They're showing the same look with the pistol. They're setting up plays. They're being deceptive. But Jalen mentioned that, like, he's learned from so many great offensive minds, whether it be Lane Kiffin or some of the guys, Lincoln Riley, and he's been trained on the same play in so many different formations to run it so many different ways. Man, it's fascinating to me. And Sirianni jokes, he always says it's almost like he's the son of a coach. His father being a longtime coach, he grew up. His godfather was a ball boy for the Texans, so he was in there. He told the story when they played the Texans, like he would be in there. Andre Johnson was the guy that he looked up to. His godfather would always tell him about Steve McNair. So even though he doesn't remember him playing growing up, he would go back, watch Steve McNair play. And I think you're seeing a little bit of that kind of rub off in his game. And man, I just
that old, the guys don't remember watching Steve McNair play?
Bro, yeah. Yeah.
Way to bring me down, Rick. Damn it, man.
Yeah. There's a whole generation of folks and I made that point on the show last week that, yeah, there's a whole fan base. Like if you're 25 years or younger, you probably don't know too much about Alcorn State and Steve McNair, right? So, man, let's shift gears to the college landscape in a second, but how realistic they've got the Commanders this week, which are, we'll just leave it at that. They got they got the Colts after that. They got the Packers after that. I mean, this team's going to finish November, I'm pretty confident, Dane, 11-0. What percentage or what kind of odds do you give this team realistically to run the table and go undefeated?
Very low. If I was a bet man, I would not be high on that. And that's just because we know that, in the NFL, it's any given Sunday. And shit, I would not want to be playing Aaron Rodgers, with his back against the wall. And I know they haven't looked good. And, I certainly think there's a storm brewing, if you will, with some of these teams. Obviously, you talk about the next two opponents that the Philadelphia Eagles play. The hard part when you're winning is to keep your team humbled and to keep them working hard, right? You just saw the other week, I'm trying to remember what game it was, but it was Michigan State, right? You look at Michigan State last week, right? They just had this turmoil. They lost their big in-state rivalry game to Michigan. They got players in a fight talking about the legal process potentially intervening, and all they do is they go to Illinois' house and they go beat Illinois at home. So sometimes those teams that are a wounded duck, a wounded animal, man, they know how to fight. And it's easy when you're a winning team to start overlooking some of these opponents, right? To start thinking of that next matchup against the Cowboys, to start thinking about that matchup against the Giants, to start thinking about playoff seeding, to start thinking about what we're going to be doing when we get that first round bye. So the most difficult thing that Coach Sirianni has in front of him is keeping everyone focused on the individual game this upcoming week, right? That is always the thing. Don't start thinking about playoffs. Don't start spending that playoff bonus you think you're about to get. We're not going to make the playoffs if we lose every game from here on out. So we got to stay humble. We got to keep our focus on the task at hand. And don't start thinking if we just show up on Sundays, we're going to win. Because I promise you, the Commanders are going to have a plan to win. The Colts are going to have a plan to win. And every opponent after that will as well.
No, there's a lot of different angles we can get into and a lot of different roads I want to travel down. But we only have so much time. So let's shift the gears over to the college football landscape. I know you were down in Mizzou last week and got a firsthand glance at a guy, Will Levis, who is not eligible for the All-Star game circuit. I just want to get that out there. I think he's a true junior. But a lot of guys are pegging him to be a first-round pick. I myself am not one of those guys. I see too many inconsistencies and flaws and poor decision-making and trouble in the clutch, folding up like a cheap suit when a game is on the line. That's just my impression, but you saw him up close in person. Is Will Levis a franchise quarterback? What were your thoughts and impressions, Dane?
So a couple of things. For one, Rick, Will is All-Star game eligible. He is, by traditional standards, a redshirt senior. He redshirted in 2018 at Penn State, which would make him eligible. However, you and I talked about on our call, when I watched his film from last year, I saw the talent, right? I saw a blue chip caliber player, a guy that has the arm, a guy that has the size, the athleticism that could, find the open receiver. I was less than convinced after seeing him live this last weekend. Now, in fairness to Will, he threw 3 touchdowns and didn't turn the ball over one time. But you know what, Rick, I'll be honest with you. There were just too many times in the game this last Saturday against Missouri where it was 3rd and long, a passing situation, and he took a sack and he couldn't find the open receiver. And, he was only looking to one side of the field, and I didn't see a great full field progression. So, to be honest with you, that game as an NFL evaluator going and seeing a guy live, that's what you want to see. You want to see if there's going to be a red flag that comes up. You want to see how their teammates are going to respond to him. You want to see those leadership qualities. One thing I liked about Will, seeing him last Saturday in Columbia, was he was loose. He was having fun pregame. He was, jawing it up with the teammates. And, so that's great. You want your quarterback to obviously be well-liked. You want him to be inspirational for his teammates. But when the game started, I did not see the elite talent that I know that is in that body come to fruition in that game.
Yeah, and I would say the Ole Miss game was another instance where he had like 3 opportunities in the fourth quarter to win that game, and he struck out 0 for 3. And there was another game after that that just didn't
Tennessee.
resonate well, with me. And I don't know. It's going to be, I think the quarterback class, and we'll get into this on another show, I think the 2023 quarterback class is vastly overhyped, overrated. I know CJ Stroud is the quote unquote consensus, and I know Justin Fields is an entirely different style of quarterback, but I've got Justin Fields as a much better rated prospect coming out, and I don't think it bodes well for this year's draft class. I will say I'm a big fan of Bryce Young. I think he's the best quarterback, but I got to take him down a couple notches with the durability and size concerns.
Yeah.
And again, we'll get into that at another date, Dane. But what did you see from that Missouri-Kentucky game? Any other prospects we should be on the lookout for?
Well, it's good to see Chris Rodriguez, the big running back for Kentucky there, kind of come up. It was a cold, windy day. It rained a little bit that morning, so it wasn't ideal. I mean, some people may say it was perfect football weather, but it wasn't an ideal day to be throwing the ball all over the park. But Chris Rodriguez, the Wildcats were able to lean on his running ability. He's a big, thick, powerful runner, got nifty feet. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Chris Carson from the Seahawks there, but he's a guy that has some talent, missed some time early in the year due to suspension, but he's been out, I think, the last 5 or 6 games, if I'm not mistaken, and you saw him have a little bit of success there against Missouri. Now, I mean, really, for Missouri, they've got an underclass defensive back who's probably their highest profile player. They have a really talented safety in Martez Manuel, but really some of their best prospects, they got some big NFL-looking defensive linemen. Whether it's Jeff Coat at defensive end, McGuire at defensive end, Darius Robinson at defensive tackle, and then DJ Coleman, a guy I highlighted in my write-up, a player that has had some conflicting issues dating back to his time at Jacksonville State, but he showed up in a big way against Kentucky. Very productive, led the team in tackles, also recorded a sack in the game. So it was good to see some of those linemen come alive, especially when you're talking about going up against an offensive line like Kentucky's that features a couple draft picks in itself.
Yeah, Chris Rodriguez is a good one. I think one of the top senior running back prospects. We talked about Zach Charbonnet from UCLA. Chase Brown from Illinois is another good one. But, yeah, this kid, Chris Rodriguez, the Eagles, Miles Sanders is going to be a free agent after the season. He could be a potential target in the mid-round, maybe early day 3, worth keeping an eye on. So, all right, Dane Vandernat here, NFL PA Collegiate Bowl, Ric Serritella chopping it up, breaking it down, a little NFL draft talk. 168 days away. Buckle up. That means we got like 200 days down of the calendar year, which gets me excited, Dane. Where is the NFL PA scouting trails bringing us this weekend? Are we going to be on location across the nation once again?
You betcha. We're going to be out in Hotlanta this weekend. Going to go see a couple games Saturday. We'll start out with Georgia State against University of Louisiana Monroe, right? Go get a nice little Sun Belt action. Got a corner Quavian White for Georgia State. Boogie Knight, the receiver for Louisiana Monroe. Should be a fun matchup to watch those guys in particular. And then a couple hours later after that kickoff, we're going to get Georgia Tech and the U. Miami squaring it off in a big ACC game. Obviously we got to see what the heck's going on with Miami. Embarrassing loss last week against in-state rival Florida State. They got a lot of talent on that team, and they got a good coach in Mario Cristobal. So interesting, for me to see, like we were talking about, right, with the Eagles and their prospects. I mean, how is Miami, after facing all the adversity that they've been facing, how are they going to respond? They got some really talented guys that are on our radar, as you know, Rick, as does Georgia Tech. So Georgia Tech, we know they fired their head coach early in the season. They have an interim coach leading that program now. They're still trying to find, obviously, their stride a little bit, but, they've got some talented players and looking forward to getting my eyes on them.
Well, ironically enough, it's interesting because Georgia Tech fired their head coach, Jeff Collins, who was the last Temple head coach, and then Mario Cristobal took the Temple head coach job after Jeff Collins for a day. Then he said, oh, by the way, thanks but no thanks. Miami opened up, and then he went back down to the Hurricanes. So little Philadelphia ties in that matchup. Pretty intriguing there. What else before we get you out of here are you going to be keeping an eye on this weekend? Another big docket on the college football schedule. A lot of moving and shaking. The college football playoffs are going to be exciting, and there's going to be some elimination games this weekend, I'm sure.
Oh, no question. But I mean, shoot, we got to start last night there, Rick, right? I mean, how about Burt Emanuel Jr., the freshman, right? Obviously not a guy on our radar, but 293 yards on the ground and 3 touchdowns. Man, that was an impressive accomplishment there for Central Michigan. But, obviously, on that field as well last night was Thomas Incoon, big defensive end for CMU. 13 tackles and a sack, giving him 9.5 sacks on the season. So he was a fun prospect to kind of keep my eye on a little bit last night. Tonight, you got Tulsa, Memphis. I know it doesn't sound like a super sexy game, but Tulsa's got a pretty good running game there going up against a Memphis defense that has a couple NFL prospects, linebacker Tyler Murray being one of them. Friday night, we got ECU, Cincinnati, right? Ben Bryant leading that Bearcat team up against Holton Ahlers and a feisty Pirate team. And then obviously Saturday, we got some big-time games. Purdue against number 21, Illinois. Aiden O'Connell, that high-flying Boilermaker offense, going up against Devin Witherspoon, Quan Martin, Sidney Brown. Illinois is stacked this year with NFL talent. Want to see how their offense and team's going to respond like we talked about earlier, coming off that Michigan State loss. But, later that afternoon, Alabama, Ole Miss, 9-11. Both teams coming off losses. How are they going to respond? UCF, Tulane. Tulane, I think, is one of the great stories of this year, ranked number 17 in the polls right now. UCF is number 22. Obviously, Gus Malzahn has UCF's offense going, but, Coach Fritz down there in Tulane, man, they are a very well-coached team. We talked about them earlier when I saw them against Kansas State, to begin the season. They've got that thing rolling, and they're a really fun team. Really happy to see them have some success. But
you gotta ride the green wave, man. They don't get enough respect over here. We got a lot of green waves here at the Jersey Shore, by the way. You mentioned ECU. They got an offensive lineman there, Noah Henderson. I just checked out. Also, you mentioned Illinois. Brett Bielema deserves some kudos for the job he's done there, even though they had that recent loss. He's kind of turned that program around, and then. Yeah, the Tulsa running back. I just watched him this morning because I thought he might be a candidate for our game. I know he started off at Texas A&M. He's a big-bodied guy. He's got these big Saquon Barkley type thighs. He just doesn't have the Saquon Barkley type of running style. He runs a little bit upright. Looks to cut it outside a little bit too much for my liking. So we'll see. I like these Thursday night games because you get to isolate some of these prospects. Demetric Prince, I think his name is. I just watched him this morning, but 6 foot, 220 pounds. We'll see. What else here before we get you out of here, Dane? Did you want to bless our great listening audience with anything else that we should be on the lookout for? Any other NFLPA Collegian Bowl updates?
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, keep posting social media. I'm sure we'll get some players that are going to be announcing their invitations and their acceptances to our All-Star game. For those Draftnik fans in there, All-Star games are a great opportunity. NFL teams expect senior players to be in All-Star games, right? They want to see them compete. They want to go get a chance to talk to these kids and interview them. So at any rate, keep an eye out for those. We're not going to announce, as you know, Rick, until December. We promised the schools that because we don't want to be a distraction. But we always love seeing the coaches present the invitations. As we've seen over the years, and we're always happy to help promote and publicize some of those announcements. But it's an exciting time right now, Rick, one of my favorites, and just excited for all of what's to come here, football related, Rick.
Yeah, I'm sure we might have a few surprises or tricks up the sleeve. Make sure you follow at NFLPA Bowl. The head coaching announcements are going to be exciting once we get to that point, and we'll have an update each and every week from here on out with Dan Vandernat, Executive Director of the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. Of course, longtime Director of Pro Personnel for the Oakland Raiders, now the Las Vegas Raiders. And Dane, tell that Kansas City barbecue I said hello. Get those ribs on the grill. Get them fired up for the NFL draft. Just 168 days away. I can't believe it.
Hey, it's going to be ready for you, Rick, but bring your coat, man. It'll be cold.
That's all right. Buckle up. It's a double chin strap affair. Every time Dane Vandernat joins us here on the Football Playbook, we salute you, Dane, and appreciate all the insight and analysis. Now, Tone DeShields, our super producer behind the scenes. It's not that time yet, Oceana. I'll let you know when the show closes. Tone, are you with us? We're going to get Dane out of here. Do we need to take a commercial break? Because I know we had an extra one during the technical difficulties, or could we go straight into our next guest? Because we have the NFL draft conversation rolling here. Okay, take a quick break. We'll be back after this with NFL.com draft insider Chad Ryder will join us here on the Football Playback. Buckle up. We'll be right back. Hit the like button. Okay, Oceana.
Philadelphia fans were cut from a different cloth. Born into a brotherhood and bonded to our team for life. We believe anything is possible because we've witnessed the impossible. While we may be from different neighborhoods, come Sunday, we are one, and we will be heard. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Fall Car Fest, and Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, says yes, you can. Jeff says yes, you can choose from over 1,000 vehicles in stock with no wait. Yes, you can still get low prices, leases, and big discounts. Yes, you can still get low interest financing. And Jeff always says yes, you can have a real deal buying experience without the hassle. When the other dealers say no, you can't, Jeff says yes, you can. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown. Nobody treats you better. Jeep Adventure Days.
My wife was in an accident that changed our lives forever. She was in rehabilitation for years. She had to learn to walk again. She couldn't take care of herself. We couldn't afford a nurse. We were running out of options. One conversation with Pondley Hockey changed everything. They understood what we were going through and immediately helped us navigate the legal process. We can't thank them enough.
Pondley Hockey. Tell us your story.
The faces you know, the team you trust. The Delaware Valley's leading news program, Action News.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Kick it up a notch here on the Football Playbook with your boy Ric Serritella, telling like it is. When it comes to the NFL draft, I just told y'all, Dane Vandernat, one of the best in the business when it comes to breaking down the NFL draft. We're 168 days away. Never too early to break it down with the NFL draft. And before we get into our next guest, we got the super producer, Tone DeShields II, holding it down behind the scenes like he does every day, sometimes on the scene. We got the associate producer, home from school. It's teacher convention week here in New Jersey. I can't catch a break, folks. Between the flu and the colds, this week it's the New Jersey teacher convention, so there's no school. Oceana's home once again. She said to make sure that I show you all the Mr. Potato Head that she drew. So we'll have more at the end of the show on the breakdown and analysis of the Mr. Potato Head. So thank you, Oceana. We'll have you on later on in the show for that. But now our next guest is a good friend of the show who joined us. Oh, and on the back, yep, Oceana. She wrote her name. Chad Ryder, NFL.com. Chad, thank you for your patience. We appreciate hanging out in the virtual green room. And buckle up. It's a double chin strap affair on the football playbook every time you join. Love talking football with you. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. I just wish I had Oceana's artistic, abilities. I don't. Mine would look much worse than that. So good job on her.
We do X's and O's here, you and I. She
Yeah,
gets into the diagrams, but no, we're chopping it up, breaking it down, and it's an exciting week because I just had Dane on from the NFLPA Bowl. We sent out our invitations this week. I see the Senior Bowl. Jim Nagy's he's got the private jet. It looks like he's flying out personally, hand delivering some of these invites, and of course the East West Shrine Bowl now also announcing their first wave of acceptances. So it's a very exciting time for us draftniks, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. We start to the rubber hits the road a little bit starting in November. You really get to see who's going where, and it's getting close. It's getting close. It's almost time to get on that plane.
Yeah, and it's going to be a big draft year for the Philadelphia Eagles because they have 10 or 11 pending starters who are going to be free agents and another 4 or 5 key role players. So you're talking about maybe a third of their roster that, they're not going to be able to sign them all. The draft is going to be important. Of course, they hold the New Orleans Saints pick, which is now the number 6 overall. So you're talking about a playoff contender who could also hold a possible top 5, top 10 selection. And we're going to get into some of your favorite prospects. And we just talked about Will Levis, somebody I'm curious to get your opinion about. But first, just the Philadelphia Eagles from an outside perspective. Obviously, you don't cover them on a daily basis like we do here on the Football Playbook.
Yeah.
But I talked about it at the top of the show. Like, a lot of people credit Kansas City and the Buffalo Bills. I look at the Eagles offense like a chameleon. They could throw it deep. They could dink and dunk. They can slice and dice it. They can ground and pound. I mean, there's really no weaknesses when I look at the offense. The defense is not too shabby either. But I'm curious, what do you see when you take an outside perspective at the Eagles? Any chance they can run the table here? Do you like them going far into the playoffs? What is your Chad Ryder take on the Eagles?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say anybody's going to run the table, okay? It just doesn't happen very often.
Fair enough.
But you got to love this team. My Packers, not so great. But for a team out of the NFC, I'd love to see the Eagles be the ones going to the Super Bowl. I'd love that. Just a few things that I've researched because that's what I do. The 8-0 teams, there's been 11 of them since 2009. Okay. And none of them have won the Super Bowl except for in 2009 when the Saints beat the Colts. They were both 8-0 teams. Okay. But since then, nobody else. Okay.
Interesting.
Most of the teams that go 8-0, 4 of them lost the next game to go 8-1. Okay. And the last time it happened, Pittsburgh lost to Washington at home. So maybe not a great omen. Now, do I expect the Eagles to lose to Washington? No, I do not. I do not expect that. But, in division, usually on the road, teams find it difficult to make it through all the way to 17-0, 16-0, what have you. So I would guess that, at Dallas, at the Giants, one of these teams with a lot of knowledge about the Eagles squad will probably pull one out against them. But again, love the Eagles team. You got to love what they're doing. You got to love what Jalen Hurts is doing. You got to love that the defense is showing up. A lot to like about this team. So I'll be rooting for them to go to the Super Bowl this year, with my Packers not, looking so hot.
A lot to like, but you're here to give us the death sentence of what 8-0 really means.
Well, look, 15-2 or 16-1, not a death sentence. All right, not a death sentence, believe me. But it's just the likelihood isn't there. But if they did it, great on them.
No, I think 15-2 is probably realistic. Let me ask you this, just from a personal opinion, because there could be a scenario like the last 2 games of the year, they got the Saints and the Giants.
Yeah.
And I'll ask you more about the Packers, but they got the Commanders, Colts, and Packers this month. So they could go into December 11-0. But
looking at their schedule, it's not bad, right? Yeah, it's not a bad schedule to run that table. But like I said, one of the road one of the road teams against an in division opponent, it's going to be tough to
No, I
make it
agree.
Yeah.
I think the Cowboys and the Giants are both going to play them tough. I really believe that. And the question is, though, like with this expanded playoff format, 14 teams, almost half the league gets in.
Yeah.
I almost feel like, I'm a guy, and this is just personal opinion. I'm a guy, I hate to take the foot off the gas pedal, right?
Yeah.
So, like, if those last 2 games against the Saints and Giants are meaningless, right? You kind of play your backups.
Yeah.
Then you get the first round bye.
Yep.
Then almost like 4 weeks go by until you play a meaningful game. Meanwhile, your opponent has been scrapping and clawing every week, fighting for their lives.
Yeah.
This is just a personal preference. I hate taking the foot off the gas pedal.
Yeah.
Are you a proponent? Are you an advocate of resting the starters?
I think it's smart. I think it's smart to do so. Like, for example, would I play Jalen Hurts week 18 if it would make sense not to? No, I wouldn't. I think if you wanted to play him for a quarter, treat it like a preseason game, just to keep him in the rhythm of being a starter, that's fine.
All right.
But you've seen, Tua in college. He got hurt in college just playing meaningless second half, he should have been out early in that game. I don't love it. But I think week 18, everything's in hand. Sit Jalen Hurts, sit guys that are maybe a little more banged up than others. Everybody's banged up this time of year.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't do it in week 17 or week 16. I wouldn't go that far. I think you have to keep your guys in the rhythm of playing as much as possible. But you just have to be smart at some point and just say, look, if this guy goes down in week 18 and we didn't need to play him, that's just not very smart.
No, I tend to agree. And, you mentioned the Packers who – what are they 3-6 now? Is that what the record is?
Yeah, it's not good. No.
But the NFL is so mediocre. I hate to use that word, but there's so many teams lingering around 500, Chad. I mean, this is a team that could rally the troops, or do you think that
9-8 could get you in the playoffs this year in the NFC? It just could. And so you never know. You don't give up. These guys aren't going to give up. I'm not into tanking for whoever you want to tank for. Not into that. These guys are too competitive. Do I think they can get back to 9-8? Yes, I think they could get back to 9-8, but could be a tough road. So I'm not banking on it. I'm banking on a 7-10, 8-9, kind of year for them. Not great. And then after that, who knows with Aaron Rodgers, he may decide just to hang it up and do whatever he does in his free time. I think it could be a rough road, but I don't count any teams out because they're just too talented. They're just too competitive. And like you said, I don't call it mediocre. I believe there is so much talent. Like a lot of teams, you talk about running backs in the draft. They shouldn't go in the top 10 because, blah, 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 blah. And it's not because they're not talented. It's because there are so many talented teams. And I think that are running backs. And I think that's the same in the NFL. I think there's so much talent out there and they're all so competitive. They all want it that badly that you can't take a week off against any team. So that's the way that I look at it.
No doubt about it. And you talk about running backs, Bijan Robinson's a pretty good one coming out of Texas. Miles Sanders, a free agent here in Philadelphia. The Eagles holding 2 first-round picks. Kind of transitions into the NFL draft, which I wanted to get into, which is what you do for NFL.com.
That's right.
One of the best in the business, by the way. We're so blessed to have you here.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Rick. Coming from one of those himself, I will definitely take that.
No, I appreciate that. So game recognized game. So, that's one of the questions I wanted to ask you because, the casual football fan or the casual NFL fan, and there's some crossover fans that have their fingers on the tabs when it comes to both. Paul Mancini would be an example of that in the chat room. But a lot of people in the chat say, oh, man, they got the Saints pick. It's number 6. Man, Will Anderson would be so good. Oh, Jalen Carter. Fletcher Cox is a free agent. Javon Hargrave's a free agent. We should go get Jalen Carter. But realistically, I mean, Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, they might go 1 and 2. They might not. They might not be there for the Eagles. Like,
right?
Who are those guys after the tier 1 prospects or the blue chippers? And maybe they are also blue chippers. Like, it's hard for me to put a running back up there, but Bijan Robinson is probably as good as I've seen.
Yeah.
Saquon Barkley. There's a couple of offensive linemen out there floating around.
Yep.
How do you see kind of, and I'll circle back to the quarterbacks. Let's keep them out of this conversation. Non-quarterbacks.
Yeah, non-quarterbacks.
Will Anderson, Jalen Carter. How does the big board break down after that?
Well, I think after Anderson and Carter, I think you're talking about Olu Fushanu from Penn State, the left tackle. He's my favorite left tackle in this draft. And I think he could play on the right side if you want him to. The thing is, he's just not a lot of experience. He started 1 game coming into this year. So
19 years old, I should mention, right?
Yeah. And so I think that's really it'll be interesting if he decides to come out. We don't know that he is.
But
in terms of talent, in terms of upside, he's the best guy in this draft at left tackle. So if he decides to come out, certainly that's a guy you have to look for. Keely Ringo is another guy you have to look at in the top 10 as a cornerback out of Georgia. I think, that interception he had against Tennessee showed you everything you need to know. He can hit a guy at the line of scrimmage. He can run with any receiver downfield. He can play the ball. He looks for the ball, can play the ball, can make the interception. He does all that stuff. He's a physical player. So I think he's a guy in the top 10 that you're going to be looking at as well. So those are 2 guys I love. Other guys that the Eagles may or may not really have interest in. Miles Murphy, defensive end from Clemson. He's a big, strong guy. And I think if you want to play him as a 5 technique, he's got that ability to do so. So teams that are looking for that, he can do that, but he can also play the power end in the 4-man front. So I think, the Eagles may have interest in him as well. So the other guy is Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech. I think he's probably the only senior that would be a top 10 pick, maybe Will Levis, depending on if a team moves up for him or what, how interesting.
This Texas Tech kid is skyrocketed up the draft boards around the league.
Yeah, he's been in my top couple, since the beginning of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, he's really been way up there because I think he knows he's got position versatility because he's about 6'6", 275, but he runs really well. I mean, you don't see a guy that big charged with taking running backs out of the backfield very often, and he does that. But he can also put his hand on the ground. He's got great length, and he's really a strong player. So I think the versatility makes him a potential top 10 pick. So I think he's another guy that people have to watch. If he works out like Travon Walker did, who, by the way, we weren't talking about the number 1 pick with him at this time of the year last year, right? So if Tyree Wilson puts that kind of workout up, him or Andre Carter from Army, by the way, who we don't really talk about a lot because, he doesn't have as many sacks this year. But if you actually watch his agility at 6'6", 260 pounds, it's pretty amazing. And he could have one of these workouts that gets us really excited about him too. So that's a couple edge guys, a couple seniors that could, really make their way into the top 10. And those are some of the guys that I would think would be in that conversation in Philadelphia.
Yeah, Andre Carter out of Army. It's kind of like Marcus Davenport out of UTEP a couple years ago. People are like, who's this guy? Oh, wow, he's the real deal.
Yeah.
I agree. Like Miles Murphy's a guy that's been on my radar for several seasons. I love this kid. Brian Barisi, his teammate, by the way, not too shabby either.
Yep.
You mentioned Kaylee Ringo. I agree with you there. And then the Penn State offensive tackle is fascinating. But I went out to Happy Valley in August.
Yeah.
I could not take my eyes. I may have never used this word in my life, Chad, until I saw Joey Porter Jr., but I had a man crush. I could not take my eyes off of this guy. He is big. He's fast. He's physical. Oh, by the way, he's the son of Joey Porter. This guy is a really good-looking prospect.
He is. I'm very glad he decided to return to school though last year, because last year he was very inconsistent in terms of where his eyes were in coverage, things like that. he's gotten better this year. And I think if you use him in the right ways, he could be a very, very good pro. I would still put Ringo ahead of him. But I think he's got a chance of being a very good pro. You see the physicality, you see the size. Speed will be interesting. Recovery speed, I'll be interested to see how he looks on the field at the combine this year, to see how that plays out. Recovery speed's always interesting with his bigger corners. So he's got some things that he could get better at. But like you said, he's an impressive prospect. And I think Fashanu is going to be that guy that scouts are going to be like, oh, this guy could be really, really good. He's got length, and he's not. A lot of guys that are that young don't have like the lower body strength. They tend to be a little smaller in the legs, but this dude is not like that. He has gotten big in the caboose, as they say, and he's got a lot of potential. So I think he's the guy that could go pretty high. And certainly the Eagles should be looking in that direction.
Yeah, big in the caboose. I like my offensive line with the bubble butts, Chad.
Yeah. I mean, look, we've seen the opposite, and guys with these tall guys that have length are athletic, but they don't have that anchor. Jason Spriggs, some of these guys that just doesn't come to them. But Fashanu's got the anchor, and so that's what makes him more excited about him than any other tackles.
Yeah, man, great knowledge here, Chad Ryder, a guy from NFL.com. Just love talking football with you. So I want to turn the attention to the quarterback class because, I'm starting to think that this might be an overrated.
We're officially in quarterback hate season. It's arrived. It's arrived. Every year is the same. Hey, wait until next year's draft class.
Yeah.
In September, all these guys are great. Then they don't make every throw exactly the way we expect them to, or they lose a couple of games, and then people, start hating on them. That's the way it goes. Okay.
All right.
Now,
here's where I'm going to go with this.
Yeah.
All right. So listen, I'm a big fan of Justin Fields coming out of college.
Yep.
CJ Stroud is an entirely different quarterback. I get it.
Yep.
But just saying, like, hey, from a franchise game-changing perspective,
yes,
I say, listen, to me, if I got to build a team around a quarterback, I like Justin. Like, if Justin Fields was in this year's draft, he's the top guy, in my opinion. I like him more than CJ Stroud.
Okay.
For my money, Chad, I like Bryce Young more than CJ Stroud. Now, I have a hard time getting over the height. 5'11". We saw the durability.
He's not 5'11". He's not 5'11".
What is he?
He can't be. He's got to be 5'10" and change at the most. Okay.
Wow.
And I still don't care because he's really good. He's just a playmaker.
I always do the test because I'm like 6 foot on the button. So like I always do the test. Like,
yeah, I would be surprised if he was 5'11".
Wow.
But I don't care about that. And here's why. You've seen what Kyler Murray has done, and I think Bryce Young is better than Kyler Murray in the pocket. He's less frenetic as a runner. He's a very smart runner, very smart player.
Okay.
So I really like Bryce Young.
Well, I guess like I look at a guy like Baker Mayfield on the opposite end of the spectrum. He's led the league in batted down balls since he's been in the NFL, right?
Yep.
So like that bothers me. The durability kind of bothers me, but I think Bryce Young makes the rare throws that other quarterbacks can't. So to me,
Baker Mayfield is not as adept as getting out of the pocket and creating room for himself as Bryce Young is.
True.
Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, even a guy like, Derek Carr is not the biggest guy in the league, right? At quarterback position. He's kind of thin, the most 6'2". He's probably shrunk at this point. He's so old. That's what happens to all of us. Guys like that, you get outside the pocket and you make throws there. And Bryce Young's very good at that. And, even moving within the pocket, Young is pretty good at that. And he's not great, but he can move within the pocket a little bit. He's not, it's not necessarily one or the other with that guy. You look at a guy like Hendon Hooker from Tennessee, had a really good year, right? You leave him in the pocket. You've got the pocket. He can make a lot of throws, okay? He's not great at stepping up in the pocket, moving within the pocket, getting outside the pocket. That's not his game. And C.J. Stroud, I think, is similar to Hendon Hooker, but I think the more you watch Stroud, the more you see that he can move within the pocket. And, that's not his elite, like he's going to bail to the right, like most right-handed quarterbacks. And he can make throws on the run better than a guy like Hooker, for example. So I like C.J. Stroud a little bit more when I really watch him and pay attention. When you're throwing to Marvin Harrison, you're going to look good, right? I mean, that's part of the thing.
Those receivers are ridiculous out
there.
Yeah.
And if Bryce Young had Marvin Harrison right now, or even if he had Jameson Williams back right now, they wouldn't have lost those 2 games, I don't think. So I think Stroud, I was kind of in your camp coming into the year on him, more of a pocket guy. He doesn't move as well. But I think he's shown enough this year to show teams, hey, I've worked on that. And when he gets to a quarterback coach after the season, and that's all they're doing is working on footwork, working on his ability to turn his shoulders and throw to the left, I think he's going to look even better to teams at that point. And, Stroud's arm is fantastic. I mean, that ball gets out quickly. And sometimes it's more quickly than Young, who's a smaller guy and you'd expect, right? So I like those guys a little bit more. And then you get to Anthony Richardson, right? What do you do with this guy? And I watched 3 of his games, and I think he does more than I expected in terms of his ability moving within the pocket. He's fantastic at that. He can really he feels that pressure around him more than I really, at first glance, when you're watching these games and you're not really scouting, you look at a guy who's like, boy, he runs really well, right? I wouldn't want to try to tackle that guy. Mm-hmm. But the more you watch him, the more you see that he actually moves within the pocket pretty well. I'm not going to say he goes through like 4 progressions. I think Young is probably the best out of this group at doing that. But I think Richardson really feels the pressure around him more often than he's given credit for. And he's got a cannon. I mean, there's no way around that. My goodness, he can laser that ball. So I think his running ability and his even movement within the pocket's a little underrated right now. I think teams will see that, and they're going to really like that guy, going into the draft. So I think those top 3 guys, the more I watch of them, the more I see them maturing, and you just hope they can continue that ascension as they get more time to work on their craft. Because people forget, college quarterbacks, they got to go to school. They're limited, in theory, by the rules and how much time they can spend with their coaches. So you got to give them a little time to get better.
Listen, Anthony Richardson, I hate to use this phrase, but to me, he's a juiced up version of Malik Willis, and I was a fan of Malik Willis coming out. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's faster, and he's got just as good of arm that Anthony Richardson. So I would say this, I agree with you with C.J. Stroud. He can make all the throws, no doubt about it. Bryce Young can make the rare throws. Like I see him roll out, and he'll go opposite hash mark and throw that cross-field bullet into a tight window, one of those old no, yes. So that's why I get excited about the upside of Bryce Young. I think Stroud is probably the safer selection at this point, but one guy who I didn't hear you talk too much about as being a top quarterback is Will Levis, and we just had Dane Vandernat on air, who was at the Missouri-Kentucky game last week, and he said there was some moments there that has him scratching his head. And I'll go back to the Ole Miss game where, I thought there was at least 2 or 3 opportunities for Levis to pull that game out in the 4th quarter and failed every opportunity that he had. And there was another game in between Ole Miss and Missouri. I know he missed a game or 2 with an injury, but there was another game where he had an opportunity to kind of bring his team back and didn't quite pull it off. And he's a quirky personality. I think he'll interview well. He won't be for everybody,
Right.
His guy, Liam Cohen, actually, I think his offensive coordinator from last year is now with the Rams.
Yeah.
So what do you make of Will Levis?
Yeah, Levis reminds me of not necessarily in stature and everything, but he does have that Josh Allen about him in terms of everybody knows he's got a great arm. Everybody knows he's a tough runner. Everybody knows that. And when you watched Allen in his career in Wyoming, you're like, wait a minute, why isn't this guy winning these games? Why isn't he making these throws? Why is he not seeing the guy that's open? And I think a team like Detroit, I think, would be a great fit for him because, Dan Campbell's going to love the competitive nature, obviously. And if nothing else, Levis is as competitive as they come. And you see the raw tools there. And not with their top pick, maybe. I could see the Lions, if let's say they end up with one of the top 2 picks, they get like the Jalen Carter or something like that. But that second pick that they got from the Rams could be interesting with Detroit. And I think he could end up the 4th quarterback taken. And then in that middle of that first round. But I think he's got so much potential. And I think he's a competitive guy that I think his teammates, yes, he's a quirky personality, but I don't think that hurts him with his teammates. I think he's just fine there. I think he's a guy that his teammates know he's going to give it 100% all the time. And I think they're going to appreciate that. That guy's played through multiple injuries this year.
Yeah, he's a tough guy. He's a tough guy.
Yeah, so you take that, you take some of the good throws, you just try to get him off playing the hero ball, okay? And it's really difficult when you know the team is counting on you to make plays and win games, not to try to make those throws. Bryce Young does the same thing. He had a bad interception against Tennessee, was at LSU, when he's trying to get into the end zone. Oh, nope, can't get in the end zone. I'm going to throw this ball, and it's behind his receiver. It gets picked off. It was LSU. I think it was Bernard Converse that picked him off in the end zone, okay? So these guys do that because they know they have to make plays for their team to win. And so I'm not going to kill them on throwing the occasional hero ball because that's what happens in that position, especially in college. In the NFL, you can lean on your defense more. You can lean on your running game a little bit more, and you can get that out of them. Say, hey, take the check down, okay? So I think somebody will like Levis a lot, and I think he'll be in that mid-first round conversation. But right now, I think he's probably the 4th guy.
Well, it only takes one, right?
That's right.
Good old saying. So
I agree. I think in the first round, they never go in the order which we think they're going to go. I mean, there's something happens where they get mixed up a little bit. The second guy goes 3rd, the 3rd guy goes 2nd, whatever. It only takes one team. It takes Detroit showed last year. They went up and got Jameson Williams, even though he was hurt, right? So a team like Detroit falls in love with this guy and says, we like him more than a Richardson, or we like him more than Stroud or Young because of the size, whatever. So you never know. But I think right now it's probably the 4th guy.
Well, listen, Chad, we appreciate the time. We do have a quick question coming in from the chat room that I want to throw by you because I'm not asking you to put them in order, but the top 3 quarterbacks you mentioned, are they going to come off the board 1, 2, and 3? I have the most recent draft order here. It's Houston Texans, who could use a quarterback. Carolina Panthers probably need a quarterback. Las Vegas Raiders, maybe not so much. Pittsburgh Steelers, we know, don't need a quarterback. Detroit Lions,
I would guess that either of those 2 teams at 3 and 4 are going to be moving out. That would be my guess. And then the either top 3 guys will be quarterbacks, or 3 out of 4 will be quarterbacks, because somebody will move into one of those spots. That's my guess as of today. And Levis coming up, from the bottom there could be in that, depending on if somebody makes a move up into that 6 to 8 area or not, and then he ends up in the 10 to 12 kind of area. So that would be my guess as of today.
It's hard to disagree. All right, just for the record, as we sit here on November 10th, who is the number 1 quarterback on Chad's big board? Do you like Stroud? Do you like Young? Who's your personal liking right now?
You know what? They all have pluses and minuses, right? I think that teams will probably like Bryce Young the best. And so I'm going to take him 1. Despite the lack of height, I think he does all the things that you want a quarterback to do. He's got a very even keel attitude, very mature attitude, and he has since getting onto campus. I think teams will love that leadership, that attitude. They'll say, hey, look, Kyler Murray, #1 pick. He's been – and this guy's better. I think we'll make him the guy. And just look at his running. I mean, he's a fantastic runner, but he doesn't look to do it first. And I think you got that. I think he's the top guy as of today. But I don't think there's a big difference. I mean, I don't think there's a huge space between him and Stroud, him and Richardson. It's really going to come down to the team's preference. And I really think it's going to be interesting.
No, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And I will say I have a liking to Bryce Young because my two favorite interviews at the Maxwell Club last year were Jordan Davis and Bryce Young. Yeah. Bryce Young because he's so humble. And he's got a little bit of Jalen Hurts in him where
he does.
Every question is deflected to a teammate. He gives praise to a teammate. Right. He deflects the accolades and always passes it forward. And I think that's going to go a long way come the interview process. So, we're 168 days, believe it or not, Chad. We got –
I know.
It's
coming.
only the sickos like you and I keep tabs on this, but we're checking off the days, we're counting them down, and I'm sure we'll pop you on back here towards the latter part of the season, get our NFL draft fix with you. We always appreciate the time, man. What do you got coming up next on the NFL.com? What can our listening audience find on the website, and where can they find all your great content?
Well, hopefully they've been checking out my Senior Bowl bi-weekly updates. Didn't happen this week because it's mid-season awards time. So next week we'll have another update of the Senior Bowl. And it'll be a little different because we're looking at team fits with the top 25 seniors that were on that Senior Bowl watch list. So, through the year, I kind of look at what they're doing, how they're playing. This one's going to be a little different. So stay tuned for that one. And we'll see some good team fits for these guys coming up in the first couple of rounds of the draft next year.
No, looking forward to it. I always use your list, too, when we do the NFLPA Bowl invites. So I go pull up your list. Okay, who's going to the Senior Bowl? Chad's projecting this. So thank you for the help along the way that you probably didn't know you were assisting us with. And, again, can't wait to have you back on here again, Chad. Always appreciate the time.
Appreciate it. And I appreciate, all the All-Star games are awesome. They are just giving these guys opportunities.
Dude, we got to get you out to Pasadena. We need to get
working out my travel schedule.
Okay.
Working it out. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see how
all your buddies are out there. My guy Rhett Lewis was out there. We had Big Trotter out there. We got Sam Weiss was out there. I'm like, where's Chad at, man?
Well, we've got all those. That's the thing working for the NFL. There are so many great guys that cover all this stuff. I don't need to be everywhere, right? I got to get my tape from game. I can get my tape right. So, we can't send everybody everywhere. But I'm working out a travel schedule. That's all I'm going to say right now.
We're going to talk off air. We're gonna talk offline. See what we can do to get Chad out to LA, man.
I would love to go out.
It's a good place to be come January.
That's for sure. I'll be looking at snow outside my window here, and I won't be able to golf. So Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and Mobile. Those are three pretty good places to be in late January and early February.
All right, we'll see what we can do to dial you up and get you out there, Chad. Always appreciate the time. My daughter's home from school.
I see that. Hi, Oceana, and good to see you, Rick. And we'll talk soon.
All right, Chad. Appreciate the time. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back right after this.
Philadelphia fans, we're cut from a different cloth. Born into a brotherhood and bonded to our team for life. We believe anything is possible because we've witnessed the impossible. While we may be from different neighborhoods, come Sunday, we are one, and we will be heard. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Fall Car Fest. And Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, says, yes, you can. Jeff says, yes, you can choose from over 1,000 vehicles in stock with no wait. Yes, you can still get low prices, leases, and big discounts. Yes, you can still get low interest financing. And Jeff always says, yes, you can have a real deal buying experience without the hassle. When the other dealers say, no, you can't, Jeff says, yes, you can. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown. Nobody treats you better. Jeep Adventure Days.
My wife was in an accident that changed our lives forever. She was in rehabilitation for years. She had to learn to walk again. She couldn't take care of herself. We couldn't afford a nurse. We were running out of options. One conversation with Pond Lee Hockey changed everything. They understood what we were going through and immediately helped us navigate the legal process. We can't thank them enough.
Pond Lee Hockey. Tell us your story.
The faces you know, the team you trust. The Delaware Valley's leading news program, Action News.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Back at it again. It's the Football Playbook, our 50th episode here with your boy, RIC in the place to be, Ric Serritella, telling it like it is when it comes to your undefeated Philadelphia Eagles, the National Football League, the football universe, and everything NFL draft. It's what we do since 2002. NFLDraftBible.com. We're partnered up with Sports Illustrated. Over 500 scouting reports for 2023 and beyond. Nobody breaks it down better than the Familia. And you guys got a little bit of a taste, a little small sample size of what the Football Playbook will evolve into come draft season. And that late January, early February time of year with the NFL PA Bowl leading into the Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl and the Combine and the Pro Days. Man, Dane and Chad, two guys that really have been doing this a long time, provide great insight, and man, I enjoy that, and I enjoy of all of our educated listeners and followers, and shout out to all our chat room people. Buckle up. We got about 10 minutes or left in the show. Tomorrow, by the way, if you're just tuned in, all of our interviews are archived on the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel, so make sure you click subscribe, get all of our show notifications. It's your home for Eagles pre- and post-game. Shout out to Ocean Casino Resorts. Shout out to Mike Miss, who hosts the post-game. He was on the Birds 365 show earlier. You can catch all that great content. And tomorrow, we're going to have John DeFilippo, who is your new head coach of the New Orleans Breakers of the USFL. Very excited for this. And very excited because I'll be down at the HBCU Bowl in February. So now I got a friend, I got a paisan in New Orleans to go, they got some okay Italian food down in New Orleans, but I love the gator. My guy, Emery Hunt, him and I tore up some alligator wings down at New Orleans for the HBCU Bowl. So Coach Flip will be joining us tomorrow. He'll talk about his head coaching expectations and what all comes with that. We'll also get into our usual weekly rodeo here. Of course, we'll have the NFL Pick'em. Yours truly, the best handicapper in the planet when it comes against the spread. I see we also have Cafe Kratz will dial up Eddie Kratz first thing in the morning. We moved Kayla Santiago this week from Wednesday to Friday because of Brian Baldinger joined the episode yesterday. And if you didn't catch that segment, Tone DeShields, the second, our super producer, isolated that, did a great job putting that up there. Oceana, you'll be coming on at the end of the show. Just be patient, please. All right, cool. I got you. I had, we talked about the video segment with Brian Johnson, or the podcast with Brian Johnson on the Adam Schefter podcast. Also, Josh McCown did a great video breakdown with Josh Norris, who, with 3 minutes left in the show, I won't be able to get to today, but tomorrow I'll chop it up and break it down if I can. The NFL exec that said the Eagles would be one and done in the playoffs. I did see that article, Adam. I forget offhand. Did they mention that exec by name, or was it an anonymous? I forget. I did see it. I mean, I don't put much stock into it. Kevin, Samantha's out, back, recovering. Thank you for asking. Appreciate that. USFL, I believe, I don't know if this has been reported or not, so I could be speaking out of step. I apologize if I'm not supposed to say it. Yeah, last year, so the USFL, in case you're not familiar, they pulled off the first spring football season since the original USFL about 40 years ago. There's a lot to be said for that. Now, they did have all the teams based out of Birmingham, so every game was played in Birmingham. So outside of the Birmingham Stallions, there wasn't really a whole lot of attendance with fans. My understanding this year is they're going to kind of divvy it up, and they're going to have half the teams in Birmingham, and the other half is going to be based out of Detroit. Now, again, I don't know if I should be talking about this. I don't even know if it's been announced. And forgive me if I'm wrong, but pretty reliable source. You're going to have 4 teams in Detroit, 4 teams in Birmingham. Not quite sure where the games will be played. Like the XFL, everybody's going to be based out of DFW, which is Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. But the XFL is going to have 4 teams based in Texas. So they're going to ship out the teams every week to go play the games, but half the games are going to be played in Texas every week. So I'm thinking the USFL, there's 8 teams. 4 will be in Birmingham. 4 will be in Detroit. I'm thinking they'll play 2 games each week in each city. There's a lot to be decided upon, but we'll get more on that tomorrow with Coach John DeFilippo. We'll see how much information he can provide us with. Again, I'm talking off the record. I guess the anonymous scout was an executive who said the Eagles would be one and done. Listen, I think any team can be, just give me 2 minutes, okay? I think any team can be one and done, quite frankly. It's a wide open NFL. I think the Cowboys and the 49ers are capable of beating the Eagles. I don't think you can discount the Vikings. We'll see. The 49ers are the team that I'm really worried about because they're getting healthier and healthier as the weeks go on. So I think, hey, can the Cowboys with Dak or the 49ers healthy beat the Eagles? It's possible. I don't think the Chiefs and the Bills are nearly as invincible as everybody else in the national media makes it out to be. I think the Baltimore Ravens can catch fire. I've been a big critic of Mickey McDaniels down there in Miami, but I mean, I got to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised, man. There's something magical brewing in Miami. I wouldn't be surprised come playoff time, man. That's a hard team to stop. I don't know how good their defense is, but it's a hard team to stop. And I'm still not counting out my preseason pick of the Bengals. They can get Jamar Chase here healthy at the end and make a run. It's all about where you're at. going into the playoffs. And if you're an Eagles fan, you gotta be careful that you didn't bust a nut too early, as they like to say in the old days. I don't know. Can I say that these days? I'm going to have some kind of woke society coming after me. But you're right, Kevin Savard, come Christmas Eve, if the Eagles take care of business and beat the Cowboys, they're going to shut them up. But they might see him down the road. It's hard to beat any NFL team 3 times in 1 year. Cowboys aren't going away. 49ers aren't going away. Seems like Oceana's not going away because she was homesick from school. Now she's home from the teachers' convention. Come on, you want to say goodbye and get us out of here? Again, our 50th show in the books here on the JAKIB Sports YouTube network. Hit the like button if you like the content we're providing you. We're going to come back at it again tomorrow and try to do a better job. Now, what do you want to tell the good people at home here today? You got Tinkerbell, you got Ariel, and you got... No, there's no time to be right back. We got to get them out of here on this. You want to say goodbye? Buckle up. It's a double chin strap affair. We'll be back tomorrow. And, man, we got our hands full. It's a can't stop, won't stop situation for Ric Serritella, Oceana, Tone to Shields, behind the scenes, and all of our guests. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Philadelphia fans, we're cut from a different cloth. Born into a brotherhood and bonded to our team for life. We believe anything is possible because we've witnessed the impossible. While we may be from different neighborhoods, come Sunday, we are one, and we will be heard. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.